Anger can drive people to do things they might not think they are capable of. But is there any justification for physically harming someone to the point they will never be the same again? Today, we are delving into the shocking and unexpected stories of two women separated by time and distance, but connected by a chillingly similar act of revenge. On the 22nd of December, 2022, in Sao Paulo, Brazil, Dana dos Santos Farias enticed her husband Gilberto to follow her into the bedroom. She seductively promised to make it worth his while, and he had no reason to doubt her. Once inside, she closed the door and told him to lay on the bed. She tied his arms and legs to the bed with her underwear and turned out the lights. This routine was nothing new for the couple. They enjoyed their fair share of kinky bedroom adventures, and Dane often took the dominant role. But this time, there would be no climax or pleasurable release. Dane had something altogether more disturbing on her mind. It all started a few days earlier when she found out that Gilberto was cheating on her, and not just with anyone. She discovered he had been having intimate relations with her niece. Gilberto's betrayal deeply upset Dane, but not just because he cheated on her with someone she loved, but also because her niece was just 15 years old at the time. The age of consent in Brazil is 14. Jesus Christ. For days after receiving the news, Dane wondered about the best way to get her revenge. Did she bring up the cheating and force him to beg for forgiveness? Or toss his belongings out on the street without an explanation? Or did she do something altogether more humiliating? Something that would stop him from cheating on her or anyone else ever again? Dane chose option 3. When she switched off the lights in the bedroom that night, Gilberto never could have imagined what she had in mind. She took a fresh razor blade, grabbed his genitals, and began hacking away at Gilberto's most prized piece of equipment. It took a few seconds for Gilberto's brain to register that this was not the pleasure he had expected. This was pure pain. He screamed out in agony as his mind struggled to comprehend what she was doing. Was she really cutting off his penis? It didn't take long for Dane to fully remove what she had came for. She stood up with the body part in her hand and took a photo of it with her phone. Then she calmly walked to the bathroom and flushed it down the toilet, never to be seen again. As her husband bled out on the bed where she left him, Dane packed a bag and left their home. A few minutes later, Gilberto was able to free himself from the restraints. He wrapped himself in a blanket and attempted to stop the bleeding as he walked to a nearby emergency room. He was rushed to hospital and underwent emergency surgery to stop the bleeding. Because Dane had flushed his penis down the toilet, it was unable to be recovered. Later that afternoon, Dane walked into her local police station and said, "Good evening, officer. I came to introduce myself because I just cut off my husband's penis." She was arrested and charged with attempted murder. But to everyone's surprise, Gilberto forgave Dane for what she did and said, "As to whether I forgive her, the truth is, God is the one who has to forgive. But yes, for my part, she is forgiven." He took responsibility for his part in causing his wife to take such drastic measures and apologized for cheating on her. Because of Gilberto's response to the incident, the charges against Dane were downgraded to causing grievously bodily harm. She pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 4 years and 5 months imprisonment. A few months after the incident, Gilberto was fitted with a prosthetic penis. Dane's vengeful act of humiliation is not an isolated event. 1 year later and thousands of miles away, a pregnant woman in Colorado decided to take the same course of action, but her choice had far more devastating consequences. 32-year-old Xingting Goi should have been enjoying one of the most exciting times of her life. She was in a committed relationship with the man of her dreams and pregnant with her second child. But all was not as it seemed. Xingting called Dustin Noyes her boyfriend/fiancé/husband, but he wasn't as sure about the relationship as she seemed to be. More importantly, he was not convinced that the baby inside her was his. Dustin had been questioning Xingting's loyalty for some time, but things came to a head on the 14th of May 2024. That day, the couple was staying at a hotel in Grand Junction, Colorado, when they began arguing about the child's paternity. At 8:50 p.m., 911 operators in Mesa County received a call from a hysterical woman who said that her boyfriend was unresponsive and might be dead. She was too upset to give an explanation about what had happened, and she became more distressed as the operators attempted to give her instructions about how to perform CPR. When officers and EMTs arrived at the hotel, they found the man covered in blood lying on the bed. They attempted to perform CPR, but after several minutes, it became clear there was no chance of revival. Dustin was pronounced dead at the scene. It was then that officers noticed where the blood was coming from. Dustin had 2 large wounds. One was a stab wound to the upper thigh, but the blood there looked like it had been dry for a few hours. The fresher wound was trauma to Justin's genitals. When investigators took a closer look, they realized his penis had been completely removed. The body part was later found in the trash can of the hotel room. While the scene investigation got underway and officers stepped out of the room to call for additional resources, Xingting followed him outside and said, "You might as well arrest me now." The officer agreed. They didn't know exactly why Xingting hurt Dustin, but it was clear there was more to her motive than just a simple spur-of-the-moment assault. Removing someone's penis takes time and precision, not to mention an extreme level of hostility. Once Xingting was in custody, she was asked to explain what had happened in the hotel room that day. She explained that they had argued because she wanted to go back to sleep that morning, but Dustin wouldn't let her. He wanted to talk and kept questioning her about the paternity of the child. She became angry, and even though she claimed that she didn't mean to kill Dustin, she lashed out with a knife and stabbed him in the leg. The wound bled profusely, but Xingting refused to get help. After a couple of minutes, Dustin lost consciousness and the bleeding appeared to slow down. Xingting said that she used a different knife to cut off his penis to see if he would wake up. What? He didn't, so she left the hotel and went to a nearby convenience store for supplies to apparently help him get better. She bought rubbing alcohol, antibiotics, Gatorade, and a case of beer. And yet, she didn't buy any bandages. When Xingting returned to the hotel room, Dustin was conscious, but barely. She made him a cocktail of ibuprofen, a green supplement, and Gatorade, which he swallowed. Dustin told her he felt cold and was worried he might die, but Xingting still refused to call for help. A few minutes later, his eyes glazed over and he became unconscious again. Sometime after that, Xingting called 911 and reported he might be dead. Xingting was charged with second-degree murder while in the heat of passion and 1 count of domestic. She's currently being held in the Mesa County Detention Center and is due to appear in court later this year. John Wayne Bobbitt is perhaps the most well-known victim of a penis removal crime after his partner mutilated him in 1993. He states that women attack men's most prized physical possession out of jealousy, rejection, abandonment, or because their partner has been unfaithful. That statement certainly rings true for both of these cases. There is an underlying theme of intense emotional turmoil and betrayal that drove both these women to commit such drastic acts. They felt cornered and overwhelmed by their circumstances and saw this extreme measure as their only way to show their partner the pain their actions had caused them. In the process, They not only inflicted irreversible physical harm, but also altered the course of their own lives.